This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on the choice. Get it on. Welcome to the best hour or so in the universe. It's Reasonable Doubt. I'm Adam Carolla. It's Mark Garrigus at his home office. How are you doing, Mark?
I couldn't be better. Coming on the heels of kind of the 10 days of Tenny, it's been a spectacular couple of weeks.
So let's talk wedding first. The decision to go with the salmon.
Yeah.
Based on dietary needs of the groom's family, where are we at with the salmon?
It was actually to honor you for coming straight from Alaska, flying in. I saw that you with a fish and the bear in the background. I mean, there was some, I have to say, you in the great outdoors was just not what I was expecting, but it looks like you really kind of took to it with a passion.
Well, I did, because Alaska, as I was talking about on my podcast, everyone gets caught up in the topography of it and the majesty and the nature and all that. But really, it's freedom. You get to do what you want in Alaska. When we went out and rode ATVs, I said to the guy who owned the lodge, as we're heading out, it wasn't like we went to an ATV park or something, or Pismo Beach or something. We just went out riding ATVs, and I said, "What are the rules?" And he said, "Oh, there's no rules. Just, stay off. You can go on the main highway, just kind of stay to the right." And I said, "Well, aren't you getting a ticket for that, riding the ATV on the main highway?" He said, No, they won't bother you. Just kind of stay off. I mean, could you imagine that in Burbank?
Imagine doing that right. They'd bring out some tank and take you out.
Yeah, so it's kind of this, float planes and ATVs and boats on the river, and nobody. It's really up to everyone to sort of take care of themselves. Like, you can go out and do dangerous shit on the river in your boat, but you're going to get killed. So that you can be your own custodian and your own guardian. They kind of trust you. Everyone there has to take care of themselves. You got to worry about bears. You got to worry about drowning. You got to worry about freezing water. You got to worry about snow. Everyone there is sort of self-sustained, I guess is what I would say.
And you also had kind of a observation about the bears too, which I thought was kind of you could probably extrapolate a little bit on it. It'd
be nice if we got back to how they do the power rankings of the bears, the big. The big papa, alpha male, he sits on top of the waterfall. He wants the salmon. The mama and the cub bears, they give him his space because they understand he's the alpha, and he's going to get his first shot at the best salmon coming up the waterfall. And, nature, it's kind of interesting because that's nature. What we're attempting to do in this current climate is sort of undo nature. It's a lot of, the guy's got a pecker and a beard, and he's going into the woman's side of the locker room at the spa. And it's like, wait a minute. Oh, no, he's identifying as a female, so we have to let him go swing his dick around the jacuzzi while the mom and the kids are on their side of the spa. And that's essentially an undoing of nature. That's us sort of fighting against what is. And it's interesting that nature, and we all understand it, nature just is nature. And also, as it pertains to the bears, the first order with the bears, and maybe this will have some application to the homeless population, which is, you can't feed them. No, you can't hand them stuff. You give them stuff, they get lazy, they forget how to hunt. It's easier to hang out and get handouts from you than it is to have them go out and work their muscles and hunt and forage. And it's dangerous because when the bears start hanging around and you're handing them food, well, once in a while something happens. a bear grabs a machete, does a hit of fentanyl, and starts going after tourists, to mix my metaphors.
Speaking of bears, and how about this for a segue? Gary, did you see the breaking news just a couple of minutes ago?
That it's finally confirmed that Garcetti is going to go to India? Thank goodness.
Yes. If Gary can now just read our minds. So all I have to say is, did you see the breaking news? It's now confirmed that the mayor, fresh off of his how many year run here in LA, is now taking it on the road and he's going to be the ambassador to India.
I don't know how many years he's been in charge. It feels like 1,000 years, but it's probably only been 3 years or some version of that. And then the question is, who's replacing him? Who's going to run this city? I always argue that I'd rather have no mayor than a bad mayor. Like, I'd rather have no program director at a radio station than a bad program director at a radio station. You'd probably rather have no lawyer colleague than a horrible lawyer colleague, because they end up doing more damage. You know, a bad mechanic does more damage to your engine than no mechanic.
Well, there's going to be, this is going to be a free-for-all for the mayor's race, I'm sure. There's one guy who's already thrown his proverbial hat into the ring and basically running on the homeless issue. He's the city council person from, I believe, San Pedro, and I've seen one of his ads, and he basically takes on the homeless issue. There's the councilman down in Venice, Mike Bonin, is dealing with the homeless issue down there, because I think he got served with recall papers. I don't know if he's got visions as well. I'm sure that Paul Krikorian will take a hard look at it. And there's also Nuri, I think Martinez is already indicated she may. So it'll be an interesting group. I wonder, I haven't talked to him about it or heard any speculation, but interestingly, I'm old enough, you're old enough to remember when the mayor was Dick Reardon. You remember when Dick Reardon was the mayor? In that vein, I wonder if Rick Caruso will think about running for mayor, the developer who's done the place a beautiful place up in Santa Barbara and Americana and the Grove. He's indicated in the past that he may have political inklings, and that would be kind of an interesting choice as well.
At this point, anyone with any business background or developer background, to me, would be quite a move toward the light. Speaking of mayors, New York City is in the middle of a runoff or an election, and they're going. It seems like they're going the law and order route over there. I mean, you're bi-coastal. Do you have any thoughts about that? Yeah,
they there's a lot of people who want to extrapolate from that race that that I believe his name is Eric Adams, who's I think he's a candidate from one of the boroughs where he presently holds office,
Brooklyn.
From Brooklyn, and he's is he not a retired lieutenant?
It says here retired captain.
Captain, okay, got it. And that's from NYPD, and that's kind of an interesting choice because the pendulum swing tends to we've had. Here in LA, we've got progressive DA, Philadelphia progressive DA, and now it looks like there's a cry about crime, which always happens whenever when you want to run on Law and Order. There's the cry about crime. I think in LA that it's number 1, 2, and 3 is the homeless issue. I don't know how anybody can run and not have to take that on head on, because if you're anywhere, whether it's the Valley, downtown, the beach areas, it's become kind of the number one issue in everybody's mind.
Where are you at with the progressive DAs? So a lot of these bigger cities have elected progressive DAs. It seems like it's what's coming out the other end of it is more crime and a lot of, CVS's or drugstores like that picking up and leaving town and shuttering and things like that. It seems like the progressive DAs have not helped with the street crime situation, but you seem like the kind of guy who would like a progressive DA. So where do you come down on the progressive DAs?
Well, I just think that you have to rethink, and that's part of what the progressive DA movement is. You have to rethink criminal justice. I mean, we've been doing the same thing for decades, and it hasn't really worked. And we just recycle the same suspects, so to speak, the usual suspects. And I don't, a lot of times the Prop 47, for instance, is always a discussion because Prop 47 was basically letting loose with the lower level crimes. I wonder if a lot of times it makes any sense to increase these crazy sentences, and that, to my mind, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I just think if they were to reimagine who gets dealt with and how you deal with them, a lot of times, we've talked about this before, you take a look at Twin Towers downtown, for instance. Twin Towers is one of the sheriff's facilities. And in large part, not this current sheriff and the sheriff before and the sheriff before that, the last three sheriffs have all said that they basically are running the largest mental health facility, AKA jail, in the world. And that's what it is. And I think that we've got to rethink how we handle mental health, because if we're just criminalizing mental health, that seems to me to be a fool's errand.
I know you got a Geico spot there that you want to get to.
I do. I
will tease. We got some Weinstein updates as well.
Geico. Do you own or rent your own home? Do you, Adam? Sure,
I'd
you
say
do.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah, and I bet it can be hard work. I often say that. What's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it very easy to do this. You can handle your homeowners, your renters, along with your auto policy, bundle them all together. You go to geico.com, GEICO.com. You get a quote. You see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. So visit geico.com today. That's Geico, GEICO.com. Right, Gary?
That's absolutely right.
How about that?
Do we have huzzah? Do we have any Weinstein updates? Any Cosby updates?
So what's your take on Cosby now? You've had a kind of a week to mull it over because it's been characterized variously as he gets off on a technicality. I always bristle at that because I think that the Constitution is more than a technicality, obviously. What's your takeaway, if you will?
Well, he's a pariah in most circles, but, Trump's a pariah in many circles. And when he has a rally, 30,000 people show up, So you can be a pariah to half the country or 7/8 of the country and still go out and play a sold-out theater tour, So there's enough. There's going to be enough people if he wants to go out and pursue his career to pursue his career. It's funny that he went from sort of infirmed and blind and weak to I'm ready to hit the road. Where's the party bus? Which we've seen happen quite a few times in the past, historically, when it comes to trials and things of that nature, especially with the famous mafia Don, who I don't even know. I can't even think of the name of that guy, but you remember him from New York,
right,
showing up in his pajamas with his walker and everything. Giancano, maybe. Point is this. He has a he has a personality and maybe he has enough of a personality. I'm saying personality, but I mean, his wiring is such that he may not think he did anything wrong. You know, I mean, we do put everything through the prism of our own mental wiring, you know. So you say, oh, my God, if that many people came out against me, I would never leave the house again. I would be so ashamed to look anyone in the eye. I couldn't even order coffee to Starbucks. If a young woman wanted to take my order, I would stare at my shoes. I would be ashamed. That may be us. He doesn't have that wiring. He has a wiring that, you know, is a narcissistic wiring. He probably thinks, you know, he never did anything wrong, or maybe he did everyone a favor who he was with sexually, because they got to be with the great Bill Cosby. So I think he's going to go out and he's going to tour and he's going to try to, you know, resume his career. Vincent Gigante. Or Gigante, right. Yeah. That's it. Now,
what did you think about Phyllis Rashad? It is Phyllis, isn't it? Getting hammered over her tweet. The tweet was something like, "Finally, an injustice is righted," and then she had to take it down. And then I think she was whatever college she may be affiliated with.
Brown.
Brown.
Ironically, Felicia Rashad.
Right.
You turned her into a white woman with the Phyllis. Felicia Rashad. I don't, you know, she had to know that any public comment about Bill Cosby that was anything other than what the status quo was, which is he was let off on a technicality, this guy's a monster. I mean, anything short of that is you know, up there with saying, yeah, well, Hitler did some things right. You know, I don't agree with everything he did, but, you know, he got the trains running. You know, you have to know that that's what's coming. You know, in a way, it's sort of refreshing in a world, a time, and especially a town where everyone just jumps ship. It doesn't matter how well they know you. It doesn't matter how much money you made them or how many years you were on the air or how much success you brought them. The second allegations come down the pike, they just immediately abandon you. That's the town we're living in. I've said with tweets like that, now again, F you money is good, but she must have F me money. Because you have to know, if you're going to defend Bill Cosby, you must have a lot of mailbox money heading your way every month, because there's no other way you could be gainfully employed in Hollywood ever again. I mean, she's an actress. She has to know that there are no, you know, she's not going to be cast as the cantankerous grandmother on a Netflix special after defending Bill Cosby. So, like, in a way, I disagree with the tweet, but I kind of like the chutzpah of the tweet. In a world where everyone immediately caves, she just went, I'm gonna lean into this. Now, I'm sure she had to walk it back, but walking it back is now the new admission of guilt. I think apologies and walking things back is now literally an admission of guilt. It's essentially someone on the stand saying, you know, I didn't rob that liquor store, but I'm sorry I did. You know, I mean, it's like, well, then you did. I mean, the answer should be, I didn't do it, or fuck you very much, or whatever it is. So she obviously has a lot of mailbox money. Bill is impervious to sort of emotional pain or scrutiny, it appears, and she'll go out and resume his career. Camille Cosby, boy, I'd love to get her on a podcast for 45 minutes and pick her brain. And then there's the lawsuit. So if Bill Cosby is your client, Mark Garrigus, and he says, screw the state of Pennsylvania, I spent 2 years languishing in a prison. Do you know what this did to my earnings? Do you know what this did to my reputation? I mean, you know, he wasn't a janitor who got thrown in the clink for 2 years. He was a guy who could have been on tour, could have had book deals, God knows what, and God knows the kind of punitive or the kind of monetary damages you could claim if you represented Bill Cosby. If he said to you, Mark Garagos, my attorney, I want to sue Pennsylvania, would you say, let's do it? Or would you say, you're just going to keep this thing going?
I think the immediate knee-jerk reaction would be, look, you're going to run headlong into fights over prosecutorial immunity. You're going to be subject to depositions and all kinds of discovery, offensive discovery at you. And you don't really, I presumably don't need the money. And instead of actually vindicating you, right now you've got a divided 4-3 Supreme Court opinion. Maybe you just stick with that and then move to go back and go on tour or whatever you want to do.
Right.
I don't know that you would want to involve or immerse yourself in litigation.
Yeah, like the same thing you probably would have told Johnny Depp about suing that English tabloid, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of times people underestimate the psychic cost of getting into litigation. I mean, there is you've been through it with your troll, your patent troll stuff and everything else. It takes a toll on you. I mean, and there are incentives to and disincentives, and it's, it doesn't always make a whole lot of sense for anybody.
But also there's probably some pathway here where Cosby could end up in jeopardy again if he wants to start pulling the lid off of all these cans, right? I mean,
right. I mean, you'd have to, somebody who he consults with is going to have to go through and see, do you want to open this up? Is there any jeopardy there? You'd have to do a whole analysis. I just, people kept saying, what is the people always ask, well, how much could he sue for? How much could he do that? Well, that isn't really the driving force. The driving force is what is the exposure? What is the cost? What is the kind of the cost benefit analysis? You really have to do a cost benefit analysis as to whether it makes any sense. And then, he's no youngster. I mean, what is he now? Is he 80 something?
82, 83, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's
83.
83. I mean,
he turns 84 this week.
Wow.
Oh, well, let's just go with 84 then.
84. I mean,
yeah.
Why do you want to bite into that after getting out? I mean, I don't know that anybody's advising him to jump in or to sue or to. I mean, obviously, that's one of the first things when you get a reversal you think about. But sometimes I think calmer heads may prevail in a case like that.
Speaking of suing, I was told that you and Dershowitz think there may be a little more meat on the bone to the Trump big tech lawsuit that a lot of people in the media are just sort of dismissing as so much fluff. But on the other hand, it's kind of tough to tell with the media these days because I feel like they have rooting interests. And I'm not so sure when you turn on CNN and they go, it's frivolous. There's no chance. There's no avenue here. There's nothing here. A few years ago, I would have believed them. Now I'm wondering if that's just their position or it's an actual legal analysis. I want to tease it and find out what your legal analysis is along with Dershowitz as well. First, let me tell you about AirMed Care Network. In this podcast, we'll take a deep dive into unforeseen scenarios. So clearly the unexpected does happen. If a medical emergency arises, an AirMed Care Network membership protects your entire family and your finances. AirMed Care Network provides air medical transport to the nearest and most appropriate trauma center. As a member, you'll never see a bill for that flight. That's right. Members never pay a dime for transport when flown by an AMCN provider. Health insurance may not cover the full cost of emergency medical air transport, so it's important to get that membership, which covers everyone in your household for just pennies a day. Right, Gary?
That's right. Right now, Reasonable Doubt listeners get up to a $50 Amazon or Visa e-gift card when you join. Be prepared. An Air Medcare Network membership. Visit airmedcarenetwork.com/doubt and use offer code DOUBT. That's DOUBT.
All right.
So it's interesting.
Yeah,
so John Cole is the lawyer, at least the lead lawyer, who's bringing this case on behalf of Trump suing these social media companies. John Cole was one of the original guys, along with a buddy of mine, John Climaco, years ago, who did the big tobacco litigation. John Cole also, you may know, because he's on his better half is Greta Van Susteren, who used to be at CNN and Fox for many years. John has brought this lawsuit, which you have absolutely characterized. If you turn on the pundits and listen to them, I think the term "dead on arrival" I have heard. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 100 times. The reason that they keep saying it's dead on arrival is because these are private, so-called companies, and the private companies you need a governmental action for an abridgment of First Amendment. So everyone is saying, well, this will be subject to, if it's brought in federal court, what's called a 12b6 motion to dismiss. I'm not so sure that, given, if you're reading some of the recent Supreme Court opinions and orders and dissents from orders, that this isn't a case that the U.S. Supreme Court, because I don't think at the district court level you're going to get a whole lot of traction because of the current law. But this may be a case that ultimately, at the end of the day, you get involvement by the U.S. Supreme Court, because it's an interesting model that is being kind of constructed here. And the Dershowitz, you're also correct, Dershowitz has said, and I don't disagree with him, that there may be some way to thread this needle, or at least to get it into a position where some law is made. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're abridging the First Amendment while wrapping yourself up in the First Amendment, it's an interesting position or defense for the media companies, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, let's remove Trump. Let's do a little thought experiment. What if Mitt Romney had brought this case? What if Mitt Romney had sent out some tweets saying that he thought, disputing the election and the outcome of the election, and let's say Mitt Romney was deplatformed? Would this have a much greater chance of getting through? Would it be more palatable to more Americans, or the Supreme Court, or district courts? Is the sort of stench of Trump going to affect this thing? And like I said, what if it was, the affable Mitt Romney?
What's interesting about it being Trump or Romney is that you're talking about ultimately what has been labeled core political speech. So if you have a platform, and that platform has, and what the argument is that the platform is supported, whether it's Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, that it's supported by the government in the sense that you get certain kinds of immunities. And that's, we could dive into that. But if that's the case and it's core political speech, that generally you would have strict scrutiny, the highest level of scrutiny of if this were a governmental action. So the argument against or for the dismissal is, well, this is not a governmental actor, so that's why you hear people say it's dead on arrival. If it didn't have Trump, but if it was, in your thought experiment, some other politician, it's an interesting. I don't know if that would get you any more traction at a district court level, but if you're thinking in terms of ultimately trying to get the attention of the Supreme Court of the United States, it may get their attention anyway.
Yeah, how do you think if this were at the Supreme Court right now, what do you think it would do? And it seems clear that some message needs to be sent to these platforms, to the social media platforms. So there's going to be some version of something. It cannot just be status quo for the next 20 years. There's going to have to be some discussion, some modifications, some oversight, something. I heard somebody describe it as they are, you don't have control. If you have a news outlet, you have control over the news and the content that you put out, but you don't really have control over the comment section. That's just people making comments, and they could say horrible things, but you don't control that. And I've heard it discussed that in a way, Facebook and Twitter are sort of wanting to have it both ways. They're saying, people make comments and we don't have control over that, so we deserve protection from that. On the other hand, you are trying to control a lot of information. And if you're controlling information, and there's a million examples of them trying to control information, then doesn't that just make you a sort of a news outlet at that point?
It's an interesting, the obviously, when we talked about the New York Times versus Sullivan and the fact that there's already 3 votes, I believe, on the U.S. Supreme Court that would revisit that, led by Justice Thomas, that is this kind of enhanced protection for media. And whether that is going to survive, I think if you were to handicap that, I would say it probably would not, and it'll be a split vote when that case gets heard at the U.S. Supreme Court. That's the enhanced protection, the malice requirement that's been the law for almost 60 years or maybe more. This is the idea that somehow a private company can abridge First Amendment. And that, I think, it's interesting also because I noticed where the current President Biden issued an order that basically targets large, big businesses, which ultimately are Twitter, Facebook, things like that. And that order just came down within the last 24 hours. So it'll be interesting to see whether any of these agencies take a look at what kind of regulations, what kind of potential antitrust, what kind of implications there are as well. Because I think you're probably right. We're working from a set of rules that were made decades and decades before what we now are dealing with.
Yeah, I think technology is going to force us to chase things because change happens so quickly. I remember a few years ago there was a rigmarole about Amazon charging tax or no tax in California. People 50 years ago couldn't have figured out that everyone was going to get everything they wanted by mail, via computer, via the internet. And so no one had any thoughts about how things were taxed because no one had any thoughts about that technology. So I think we're always going to be chasing it, and it's going to happen. It took a while to get from the horse to the automobile and from the train to the airplane, but this is all happening in months. And, or take something like Uber. No one knew what to do. Are those employees? Are they full-time employees? Are they outside contractors? How do we tax them? Do they unionize? I mean, politicians are going to be chasing big tech and all the innovations for this is going to be the new world order. They're going to be trying to figure out how to tax Amazon and what to do with Uber and what to do with the big platforms.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Remember what happened with I watched this. I had a front row seat to the decline of payphones. Remember payphones?
Right.
Used to have payphones. People don't even. I talk to people now; they don't even know what a payphone is. And cellular phones basically obliterated the payphone industry, and the Uber and Lyft have taken its toll on the taxi cab industry, and also has had us fundamentally rethink employment status and things of that nature, as you said, and the characterization. Are they 1099? Are they W-2? Are they do they have requirements? Do they have to adhere to this, that, or other things? And those are fights that go on repeatedly. And as you said with Amazon, think back to a Sears catalog. I mean, people don't even remember what that was.
Layaway.
Right.
All right, so let's go to Weinstein.
So it's interesting with Harvey, because the argument has been the judge in LA Superior Court has issued an order for the DA's office to respond as to why they need to bring him here. Their response has been, we're ready to try him within the next 4 months. The reason 4 months is key is that the under extradition, that is once they get him here, that's the speedy trial right that attaches. And normal court hours start this coming Monday. I just got a email saying the LA Superior Court is going back, starting on Monday. His response, Weinstein's response, has been, look, I've got various eye issues, sight, vision issues. I get injections into the eyes. I've got, I'm losing the sight, and I need, where I am in New York, I need to be able to attend to that. And I'll waive extradition and I'll be ready to come there basically on a moment's notice once I'm done with this. I was a little surprised to see where the LADA said they were ready to go, but I suppose if they've already taken it to the grand jury, that makes some sense. They kind of skipped over the preliminary hearing, as is their right, and indicted him. And it'll be interesting to see what the judge has to say. They're still doing the kind of papering it up, so to speak, and he'll make a decision, I'm sure, shortly. And it'll be interesting to see also if the LADA kind of negates the whole exercise by going and grabbing Harvey Weinstein from New York as of right now, because I don't think that there's any stay in place that prevents them from doing that.
So meaning LA can just go get him if they want.
Yeah. I mean, it would be I suppose it would be a little of an affront to the judge, because he did issue what's called an order to show cause on why they shouldn't go get him right now and why they should wait. But there's nothing, he didn't issue a stay as far as I can tell. And I suppose they could go and grab him, and then that would make the whole thing an exercise in futility, because he'd already be in the jurisdiction, and then there's nothing to shout about at that point. It'll be an interesting trial. I mean, between his trial coming up, Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, which I think is now, when's hers now, Gary? Isn't that in November? And there's also things being released, I believe, within the next week that's coming up, which will be fascinating as well. And boy, speaking of cases, one that's just fallen off the cliff in terms of what you don't hear about anymore is that case in Belize that we were talking about for a couple episodes. Once they released that woman from custody, other than her chasing her partner with a video or the cell phone, there hasn't been a whole lot about that case as well.
That's the one with the heavy-set sort of ex-chief of police and the doc, and somebody got shot and
breaking curfew for COVID. Yeah.
So is there any, I'll tease it because I got to do a spot.
And let me update you guys. Ghislaine Maxwell's trial is going to be around Thanksgiving. They're going to do jury selection mid-November, and they're going to start end of November.
So two things. Are there people that are worried about what she might say in that trial and whose names she may have, tucked away, stashed away somewhere? Is there people that are kind of sweating that? Is there going to be revelations made there? And the other one I'll tease is there any avenue for Weinstein to get out of prison? We just saw it happen with Cosby, but is there any avenue for Weinstein in the foreseeable future, or is he going to die in prison? First, we'll get to that. First, I'll tell you about Credit Karma. Credit Karma money checking account where you can win daily instant karma purchase reimbursements on items up to $5,000. Just pay with your debit card. If you win, you'll be notified on the spot, and your instant karma cash will be added back to your spend account. Credit Karma money has already given away over $3 million to over 50,000 members. Open an FDIC insured account for free, no minimum balance required, no overdraft fees, and free withdrawals at 50,000 plus ATMs. When you make a purchase between July 1st and July 23rd, you'll be automatically entered to win $1 million. It's Credit Karma, right, Gary?
That's right. Right now, visit creditkarma.com/winmoney to open your free account and start winning instant karma. Go to creditkarma.com/winmoney to sign up for free and start winning instant karma. That's creditkarma.com/winmoney. Instant Karma is sponsored by Credit Karma. No purchase necessary. Exclusions and terms apply. See rules. Banking services provided by MVB Bank Incorporated. Member FDIC. Maximum balance and transfer limits apply.
So is there any avenue for Weinstein ever seeing the light of day?
Yes. What would have to happen is he would have to get the New York case reversed. If he gets the New York case reversed, his conviction, then he would be eligible for bail there, and he's already eligible for bail in California. So he could get out conceivably if he gets that reversed. One of the reasons, and I was having this discussion with a prosecutor friend of mine who was telling me that I've got to get outside of my criminal defense mindset, that one of the reasons that the prosecution in LA may want to try this case sooner rather than later was that the prosecutors would be concerned about that the prosecutors would want to try to get him work at I don't want to call it lightning speed, but at a relatively quickly to get a verdict here. Presumably they're confident about their ability to get a guilty verdict, because that in that way, that would forestall him ever getting out if that happened prior to a decision by the appellate department in New York. So it's an interesting tug of war for him and his teams, both in New York and LA.
Well, I have mixed feelings because on one hand, I believe he's guilty and should remain in prison. On the other hand, if Weinstein gets out and Cosby gets out, Alyssa Milano's head is going to explode, and I would like to be there for that. So I have kind of a mixed feelings on it. You know what I'm saying? I'm torn.
You're about the collateral damage.
I just want to see what her next tweet is. That's all. So I apologize. I've got kind of a hard out because I was telling Gary that I've got to go, unfortunately, because I still wanted to come back and talk wedding with you. And finish well,
up.
They call those evergreens. So yeah. we can get into that whenever you like. I know you got a hard out. I got a short spot. Weinstein may have an avenue to get out. And what was the last thing? Oh, I tease. Maxwell. Ghislaine.
Maxwell, look, of course there's the titillation factor But the fact that there were people who had intervened in the litigation to keep the things sealed and have their names sealed leads me to believe that there obviously are people who do not want to be named or have their information released. And I think when that information comes out, I obviously think Ghislaine Maxwell is going to have a tougher uphill battle because there's going to be all kinds of scrutiny regarding who's named and in what context, things of that nature.
Are all those names going to come out in the court setting?
As of now, there's an order that, unless stayed, looks like prior to her trial, a lot of these names are going to be out.
Wow. Well, that'll be an interesting chapter in our society.
I've also seen a ruling that all of the stuff that comes out in depositions for any civil litigation is eligible to go into the criminal as well.
Ooh. All right. Well, we'll look forward to that. We'll stay tuned. Mark, I know you have to fly. We'll bid you adieu. We'll see you.
Thank you. Bye,
soon.
Gary.
And last but not least, I'll tell you about Geico. Do you own, do you rent your home? Well, you do one or the other. And then there is your automotive policy. How about you get your bundle working with Geico? You can go to geico.com and find out just how easy it is to get a quote and how fast it is to get your bundle going and just how much you could save when you get your bundle happening. You already have so much to do around the house. Why not make it easier on yourself? Go to geico.com. Get your bundle happening today at geico.com. All right, this Friday, Saturday, Raleigh, North Carolina, Good Nights Comedy Club. I'll be there. We're doing a live pod there. We'll do stand-up as well. And then August 27th, 28th, Minneapolis. We'll do, that's the Acme Comedy Club as well. Go to adamcarolla.com for all the live shows everywhere. And you can check out our Chassis channel, a bunch of free content on there, channel 687. Check out our on Pluto TV and subscribe to Reasonable Doubt's YouTube channel, youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt podcast. Until next time, it's Adam Carolla for Mark Garriga saying mahalo.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.